Disclaimer. This video is rushed and that is why the quality really worsens. Disclaimer. This video is just a rant of me giving out my ideas with little to some scientific facts behind it. So don't just repeat what I've said. I just want to see if anyone thinks similarly as me. But anyways, let's go to the video. This is what I think. Yeah, this is what I think about science fiction, science and fiction. This is what I think, yeah, this is what I think about the past, present, and future. This is what I think, yeah, this is what I think. Today we see Maxwell's opinion on time and its meaning. As I have just said, today I'm going to talk about time. Everyone knows at least something about it. For example, that 60 seconds equal a minute and 60 minutes equal an hour, and 24 hours equals a day, and so on. But you might also know to the other side that a second is made out of milliseconds and that of microseconds and nanoseconds and that side as well. You also age every year 1 year older. Wow, what a surprise, but that isn't obvious. Imagine explaining that to someone who doesn't understand time. You grow from a baby to a young child to a teenager to an adult to a boomer. And if you're a physicist and you're interested in Einstein's theory of relativity, you might also know that time is relative and it depends on factors such as speed and gravity. So it goes relatively faster or slower to other people. It just depends on the point of view. But today I'm going to tell you something different, something that probably, I don't know, but probably you haven't even thought about. If you're a scientist, you have probably learned about entropy. Entropy is a measuring system of how well elements are divided in a certain zone. For example, if you put ink in water at the beginning, it will have a low entropy level as it's all concentrated in one spot, and as it keeps spreading the ink through the water, the entropy level will rise. And then the whole water will end up being of a single color. Not only does it happen with colors, it also happens with heat. If you put ice on a water glass, the temperature, the middle temperature of the glass will lower and the temperature of the ice cubes will higher up to then stay both at the more or less same temperature. This also happens in a large scale in the universe. At some point in a very, very distant future, it's supposed to be the entropy term entropy is supposed to mean that at that point all the atoms will be equally separated. The whole universe will have the same temperature, the same materials everywhere. So any cubic meter you would pick would have the same things, the same properties as any other cubic meter in the universe. This would mean that maximum entropy would be achieved. But what does this have to do with time, you may ask? Well, at least in my opinion, or for this video, I'm going to explain you why time is dependent on changes, at least theory time. Well, we can say, oh, but a second is a second, or a day is a day. But how did we get to the term a day? We saw how long it took for the sun to be in the same spot between different days, between a night and a day. The time changes between day and night. That's how the first clocks were made. They made literally a stick on the ground, and depending on where it was pointing, people could more or less tell what hour it was. So that's a change. And modern clocks work too. The nuclear clocks, they measure how many radiation a certain element has to see how much time has passed, and then that information is passed to all the electronic devices on the world. So it's also dependent on change. It depends on how the material irradiates. Electrons or whatever it irradiates. I really don't know that much. But then what does this have to do with entropy? I still don't manage to go there. Well, if we ever know that entropy is achieved and it won't change from that state, that means that entropy will be forever. If you woke up at that point, well, that would be a change, so that wouldn't be entropy. But if you, in theory, woke up at that point, you couldn't tell the difference between day and night and how many times, how many seconds have happened. You could tell in your mind, but imagine if it's just thinking, looking, you cannot think, and you just have to say, how many years has it passed since the Earth was made? You cannot tell. You have no information, no changes to get out information to take time out of it. And time itself is dependent on changes, as I have told before. So in a state of ultimate entropy, and that we know that it will not change out from there, we know that time doesn't make sense. So at some point in the very, very large universe, after all the black holes have died, after, as I said before, every cubic meter of the galaxy has the same properties as every other cubic meter of the galaxy, at that point, time would make sense. But when will that happen? I don't know. Because if we say that it starts at point X, at when there is full entropy, then there isn't full entropy because that was a change. There, time makes sense because there was a change from when time didn't make sense to when time did make sense. And then if we say, well, it's not there, then why not exactly the next amount of time, the next second, the next millisecond, the next nanosecond? Well, no, because then that would be the moment where it would change from making sense to not making sense. This is also a question that I haven't managed to solve. When would that time start when time doesn't make sense anymore? When it isn't useful to have time anymore? Because if you don't have changes, why would you use time? If everything stays the same, why would you use time? We can also see that here on Earth. If you are in a critical state, but you are still possible to live, so there is a possibility that you live and there is a possibility that you die, then time is measured. How much time has it passed since this person began to drown? Come on, let's help him. But if we see, oh, this person is already dead, let's see how much time it has happened since this person has died. That probably won't happen to everyone. Maybe just to some famous people like, I don't know, William Shakespeare and the first president of the United States, Christopher Columbus, I don't know. But probably they won't count every second that has happened from your death. But they will count every second that has happened from the accident to see how high are the chances of you living. It's important, time is important when there is a possibility of change or where there are changes. If there are no changes, time doesn't make sense. Thank you for coming to my MOO talk.